Okay, we're ready. Right, everyone ready to start the meeting? Just the formalities at the beginning. This meeting will be recorded and live streamed by Harbour District Council. Members and officers must use the desk microphones in order for this to work. Only 2 microphones in addition to the chairman's can be used at the same time. Mobile phones, please switch off your mobile phones or put them on silent. And the fire exits are over here and over there. The meeting point, if there is a fire alarm, is the top of Mill Hill car park. I just wanted to start the meeting by saying that sadly I'm in this position because of the passing of Councillor David Gare, and I thought it'd be remiss not to mention him tonight. Although we did have the opportunity at full council to give our condolences and have a minute's silence for him, but I just wanted to say tonight that I mean, we've all shared that he was such a great person. He was just the most friendly and welcoming councillor. He was so helpful to me as the chair, to my vice chair, and he'll be greatly missed. And I think I'm sure he said that he started the town council, Lutterworth Town Council, in 1988. And if that's true, then he was town councillor for as long as I'm alive. And that's just amazing. You know, he's so passionate about politics and his local area, and he'd be sadly missed, and missed in the audit committee as well, I think. So yeah, we just wanted to put on record our recognition of his thoughtful and considered chairing of these meetings. Next, we'll move to the agenda items. So apologies for absence. Councillor Mrs. Page is now on the cabinet, so this has created a vacancy on the committee, for which I would like to welcome Councillor Moder, who is filling that vacancy, and Councillor Asher, who is filling the vacancy opened up in the coalition because of sad passing of David Gare. So yeah, welcome to our meeting. I hope you enjoy it. Next, do we have any declaration of members' interest? And item number 3, draft minutes of the Audit and Standards Committee of February the 18th. Are we happy to approve and sign these as true and accurate record? Any comments? Yeah, Councillor Bateman.
Yes, happy to propose those, Chair.
Thank you. We need a seconder. Yeah, Councillor Austin. Yeah. Yeah, everyone happy then? Yeah. Yeah, Councillor Jenny. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Moving on. Right. Item number 4. So the Harbour District Council audit plan to be introduced by Director of Resources and supported by Helen Lillington, external auditor. I'll pass over to Helen.
Thanks, Chair, and good evening, everybody. So I'm just going to take you through the key highlights of the audit plan, which you have in front of you, recognising that covering report that officers have provided us, again, drawn out a lot of those main points. As you will be familiar with, the audit plan sets out the key risks and the areas that I will look at as part of the audit this year. It covers both the financial statements audit and also the value for money audit, which you'll be familiar with. So just to highlight some key things, the significant risks that we identify for the audit are set out on page 18. And just as a reminder, when I talk about a significant risk, what I am talking about is the risk that there may be something in the accounts that would lead me to give an incorrect opinion. When I talk about audit risk, that's what I'm thinking about. So I am looking at those areas that are most significant or highly material. You will be familiar with a number of the significant risks that are outlined on page 18. You will be familiar with some of them in terms of property, plant and equipment valuations.
Sorry. Page 18 in the documentation that I'm looking at is not risk. So which one are you looking at?
Sorry, oh, we got a different pack.
Unless it's, I'm just looking at a pack, so I don't know.
Page 18 of page 18 of 126.
I think he's just got this.
Yeah, it's not in this document.
The other pack. This is the one that was handed over. Yeah, that was the additional that report pack. Well, I don't have the other one. No, it doesn't have the one. This one's it's got the right one.
Oh, I'm relieved to hear that. It's that one there.
Yeah.
That one there. It's that one. Pass you that one down. That's page 18 of 126.
So you have this.
That's okay, we'll share the story. Thank you.
So I can go back.
Yeah.
Go back.
Well, that's definitely.
Sorry, that's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you happy for me to carry it? Right. So as I was saying, the significant risks are listed on page 18, which I think everyone now has the appropriate page 18. So ordinarily, the significant risks, we are looking at areas of what we would call significant estimation uncertainty. That normally attracts a level of risk. So we would be looking at things like management override of control. We would be looking at valuations, particularly property, plant and equipment, particularly the pension liability. And that is what we will have seen in previous years. The list is significantly longer than it has been in previous years. And the reason for that relates to some of the control deficiencies we've talked about in previous audit reports and the fact that I've been unable to complete an audit for the last 2 years, which obviously raises a level of risk, and therefore you have more risks highlighted there that we need to address as part of the audit this year. Just touching on the backstop, which we have discussed at length on many occasions during this committee, but I think it's important to recognise 25-26 will be a year where we are focusing again on completing in-year transactions and looking at the closing balances that we can look at in isolation. So we'll be looking at the 25-26 transactions. We are not currently planning any work to be able to regain assurance over the years that have not been audited, recognising that the council has been on quite a significant journey over the last couple of years, and we need to spend the time this year focusing on doing that 1 year and making sure that we've got a solid base before then thinking about what we do to regain assurance. Also recognising that the deadlines and the backstop date, which is in legislation, continues to come forward. So the year that we just finished in terms of 24-25, we issued the opinion in February because the backstop date was the end of February. For the 25-26 year, the statutory date is actually the end of January, but we are dry running and asking all clients to comply with the end of November deadline, because the following year, the statutory deadline comes forward to the end of November. So we are using this year very much as a trial run to make sure that we iron out any particular issues so we can get everybody where they need to get to for that statutory date coming quite a long way forward from where it has been. And I think for you as a council, that's actually quite a big journey to go from end of February, which we had last year, to the end of November. So for that reason, we are focusing purely on those in-year transactions and those closing balances. Once we have completed that, we'll then enter discussions about what's appropriate and how quickly we can start to regain assurance. But just to manage expectations, the 25-26 audit will have a disclaimed opinion because we will not have the assurance over opening balances, but we are planning all the work to be able to complete in-year transactions and the isolated closing balances for 25-26. So I think that was worth sort of revisiting. In terms of timeline and where we currently sit, so this audit plan is presented to you in what I would call in line with the standard timetable we as expect. It's a step forward from where we've been in previous years. So the work that we need to deliver the plan has all been completed, which is a huge step forward. We have also managed to complete the vast majority of the interim testing that we intended to undertake by this point in the year. There were a couple of areas where we've required escalation with the help of Section 151 officer. That is largely being where information has been provided outside of the finance department. And we've discussed this, and there is a little bit of work to do around making sure that not only the finance team are ready for the audit in the summer, but the whole organisation are ready to respond to those audit queries. But there has been progress, and there has been a positive trajectory, which I think is important to recognise. It's equally important to recognise that there is still some way to go for you as a council, and the proof of the pudding, so to speak, will be when we get the accounts in the summer and we start the audit in July to do those final accounts. The other area just probably worth highlighting is around the VFM risks, which is the other part of the audit, which you'll be familiar with. So the risks that we identify there and where we'll focus our work, very much around the how you prepare the financial statements. So following up the risk around there, but then also we've highlighted a significant risk around the financial position and thinking about how that has been managed and how the budgets have been set. So those are going to be the two areas of focus in terms of the value for money work. I think those are probably the key areas that I wanted to draw out from the audit plan, but I'm more than happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments, questions?
Sorry.
Councillor Bremer?
So 25-26 will again be disclaimed. So that's 3 years in a row.
Yeah, well, we will disclaim because we will not have the assurance over the opening balances. Yes.
Okay, but from a recent email from Chief Executive, there seems to be a greater assurance around the bank reconciliations being completed on time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you recall, members recall back in February, it was you were informed that the 23-24 will be done by the end of March, if I remember rightly, and 24-25 were done by the end of January. Those were met, and the position is improving as we speak. 25-26 will be done by July, and we are on track for that. So that, you know, I assured you the team will be working night and day to get that done, and the update that the Chief Exec forwarded earlier this week gave you that latest position where we were. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor James?
Thank you. My comments actually relate to the covering report, which starts on page 9. Is that okay? Yeah, just to deal with that. Thanks for what you've given us there, Helen. You know, when you read through this document and you read through a lot of information, two words keep popping up, and it's bank reconciliation all the way through. Now I'm trying to understand an example of that, what that actually means. Does it mean, for example, that if we're going to collect green waste at that's a new price, I think, isn't it? But say £25 a time, and that therefore we have invoices for that, and we compare that with the bank allocation for that cost code or whatever. Is that what we mean? That our records in various cost code categories are not matching what's in the bank? And if I could, Helen or our director could give me a comment on that, please.
Yeah. So a bank reconciliation takes your bank statement balance at a particular point in time, reconciles that to your ledger, and of course, you will have things that are in transit, so things that you're waiting for the cash to come in.
Yeah,
you've got, and that's the bank reconciliation, and that is what is being done at the minute.
Okay, thank you. And then within that report, are we confident now that we've got the staffing resources in the department to get this right? Because I think we've discussed this before, and the staffing become a problem. So two things: are we confident we've got the staffing resources in place to do this correctly now? And are we confident that the IT system, the newish IT system that we've got, is also working properly? Because if we've got the staffing and we've got the IT support, we should be able to move forward in a positive way. I just welcome a comment on that also, Helen and Director.
Yeah. Through Chair. Yes, at this point in time, we, as part of last year's budget, the council approved an additional investment in service, and a little bit more this year to help out with debtors. So yes, you have a new finance team. Effectively, most of the team are new. But we think there is sufficient resource in there to deliver what we need to deliver. We also have a couple of interims working for us to support us through the year end and sort of do some of the automation work on the bank reconciliation. So yes, we are committing resource and have committed resource. And as I said last February, you know, we are doing everything we can to deliver the accounts by the 30th of June and make sure that there's good working papers and the bank rec will be done. Capital was sorted last year. We now have a debtors and creditors list that the auditors, I think, have been able to draw a sample from. I'll shut up now because I think Helen wants to say something, but I'll come back after Helen.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Helen.
Now, I just wanted to sort of flip it slightly and come at it from an output point of view, because what Clive has just talked about is the amount of, you know, inputs they've put in and the extra resources. You know, again, as auditors, we look at, well, what is the output of that? And it is very, very early days. And I need to be really clear with you on that. But the 23-24 bank reconciliation that was going to be delivered by the end of March, we did receive that as auditors in line with those timescales. So that was a deadline that was met as far as we are concerned. We are still doing some testing on that, so I can't give you any assurance on the quality of that, if you like, but it was delivered in the timeline we expected. We have done some interim testing, and of the testing that we have completed, what was particularly pleasing is the quality of the evidence that we had was generally right first time. You will remember I've sat here in previous years and said it has taken us a very long time to get to the point where we are comfortable with a transaction. There has been a lot of to-in and fro-in. We've not had the evidence to support that transaction. Well, actually, from the limited interim testing we have completed, what we have seen is very much focus on right first time, which starts to give me as an auditor the confidence that things are going in the right direction. So that's sort of flipping it and looking at the output, which is starting to give me a level of confidence, and I would hope will give you a level of confidence as well, that it's the right trajectory.
Okay, Okay, thank you very much. And just a final question. In the report again, we refer to the Harbour District Commercial Services organisation, and this has had a long history, hasn't it? And in another life, I spent quite a bit of time on Company's House, and looking again today, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable about this organisation, to the point that I would ask for a report come to this committee about the Harbour District Council services and the future of it. And so that's a question I've got.
Have a comment on that?
I don't need to go into detail, but I've got the detail.
I think we just need to be a little bit careful about responsibilities and accountabilities in terms of this report, in that it's ultimately a cabinet decision on what the future of the company might or might not be. It's very clear they act as the company shareholders in the council's constitution. The purpose of the audit committee is to obtain assurance over controls and systems and processes, and making sure that the auditors are evaluating the accounts and obtaining the output of those. So inevitably work will be emerging, but I expect that would need to go to cabinet, because it will be their decision to make. If the Audit and Standards Committee need assurance after that decision has been made, then we can explore that.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leah. Well, I would like the cabinet to look at this then, please, would be my request. If that can be passed to the cabinet, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor James. Sorry, who was first? Councillor Brunner.
Just to say, on the basis of previous meetings, it is heartening to hear the external auditor give a trajectory which is much more positive with the limited data that she's been able to test. And hopefully that first tranche of evidence that has been received will be what follows, the same level of evidence that you'd expect to see with the first look. So that is a confidence thing in, I would say, in the finance team and all the work that they have to do to bring it up to that level. But we remain in the position where the proof of the pudding will be the full audit. So we'll wait for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brunner. Any other comments on that?
Councillor Scott.
Oh, Councillor Scott, sorry.
Very, very quick one in relation to what Councillor James was saying. Surely the questions about HDCS should be brought back to. It would be better if you brought back to a scrutiny committee rather than to this committee.
Yeah, sorry, I should have added, and of course, because it's a cabinet recommendation, you're right, it's then for scrutiny to either pre-scrutinise, or if they're unhappy, post-scrutiny or call him.
Okay, thank you for clarity on that. Anyone else on this? No. So what do? Do we approve the recommendations?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if everyone's happy, then move on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Austin.
Sorry, thanks, Chair. I'm just I wanted to just ask a question on the internal audit side, but I'm presuming that's coming up on the next.
It's next, yeah.
Next position. Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, so the internal audit now to be introduced by Rachel, who's our Chief Internal Auditor.
Thank you, Chair. So the first report from Internal Audit this evening is the Internal Audit Charter and Mandate. So this is a document that essentially sets out how we deliver your internal audit service and how it aligns with the global internal audit standards, and also sets out our rights of access and our mandate to undertake the service that we deliver and how we report back to this committee. So this document comes to the Audit Committee on an annual basis for your review and approval, which is a requirement of the internal audit standards. This document was fully reviewed in 2025 to align with the new global internal audit standards, and I consider it to remain fit for purpose. So there's nothing that I consider requires any amendment, but it still requires your formal annual review and approval. So I'm bringing this to the committee today for that review and approval for this financial year. Also on the agenda today is the internal audit plan. So I like to bring these two documents together. The plan is essentially what we will be delivering, and the charter and mandate is how we will deliver it and the mandate with which we will deliver that work. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair. And as I say, this is for the committee to formally approve this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on those two? Yeah, Councillor Austin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Rachel. The I was interested in reading through this because obviously, as we have had the issue with the bank reconciliation and things like that, I wanted to see how deep our internal audit is in relation to discovering things like got a problem with the bank reconciliation. And I appreciate, according to this, obviously this has all been revised from 2025 and we're talking 2023, 24 and so on and so forth through. I just wanted to ask how effective have our internal audits been up until now if we are only now facing into an issue with not being able to reconcile the district council's bank accounts for the last 3-4 years. So I don't know who's to speak on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to comment on that. So actually, we had an overdue audit action, which was reported to the committee on a regular basis back at least a couple of years, which are related to the completion of bank reconciliations. So we did flag it and it has been on our overdue action tracker. Obviously, it then got to the point where it's also picked up by external audit. It's still an overdue action. You'll see it's on the committee papers this evening. It's still an overdue action. So it's something that we have been reporting on. We have audited it. We have flagged the risk, and it's for management to take those actions forward. I know we have discussed at previous meetings about the committee challenging the implementation of audit recommendations, and obviously that is a key role of the committee, and I know that has been taken on board by management, and we do have updates on those actions this evening, but it does hopefully show the value of that process and how that's intended to work.
Thank you. Any other comments on the charter mandate and the audit plan? Yeah, Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going to say I'm happy to move both of those. The charter's no different. It's an annual review and approval, and the audit plan for 26-27 looks very good to me for the internal audit. So happy to move both of those, Chair.
Thank you. We need a second. We have a second. Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Yeah.
Everyone happy?
Everybody happy with that? Yes. Nodding all round. Great. Thank you. Okay, so the next item, that's also Rachel, and that our progress and performance update.
Sorry, Joe, did we want to take the internal audit plan as a separate item?
They were jointly proposed. So, Chair, I think Councillor
Yeah,
Bateman
you said
proposed
both,
the
yeah.
charter, mandate and audit plan collectively.
No problem. So taking this on then to the internal audit progress and performance update. So this is the usual update on delivery of the internal audit plan for the 25-26 financial year. So it is in the format the committee will be familiar with, and I'll just take you through the key sections. Just to note that any of the reports that were not finalised in time for this progress report from the 25-26 plan will be included in the annual report, which will come to the Audit and Standards Committee at your next meeting. So we'll be able to then feed into your annual governance statement and so on for the financial year. So since the last committee meeting, we had finalised the 2 further audit reports. So these are summarised for you in section 3 of the appendix from page 83 of the pack. So the first related to business continuity and disaster recovery planning. So this is obviously one of the council's strategic risks around delivery of services in the case of an unplanned incident or event. So at the time of the audit, there was a refresh of business continuity plans underway with a new template that had been introduced. That had not been completed at the time of the audit, so there was a limit on how much assurance we could take from the completion of those plans at that point. We also highlighted some gaps around the stakeholder engagement and critical contract references within the documentation, and a need for further staff support and training, just to make sure that we had a consistent approach, and that would also then link into a strong disaster recovery plan, which needs to be suitably informed by the business continuity planning process. So we want to make sure that where we're relying on any technology within the business continuity plan, We know that that is within the recoverable time that's been allowed for within each of those systems, and that we know what our priority systems are to get back up and running as well in those circumstances. So we need those two plans to be closely aligned. So we have made 9 recommendations in total in relation to this audit, both around strengthening the control environment and ensuring the compliance and consistent rollout of that documentation. So overall, we have given a limited assurance on this audit based on the status at the time of the audit. I do understand that work has taken place since then, and officers may be able to provide an update. But at the time of the audit, we have given a limited assurance opinion. So we have proposed to revisit this area and hopefully see improvement made in strengthening the controls and the compliance as well. So the next related to Section 106 monitoring and in relation to developer contributions and how we are monitoring the trigger points, but how we're also then monitoring the money that we're holding to ensure that that is spent in line with the agreements. So again, at the time of the audit, a number of improvements had been made during the recent months at the time that we undertook the review. So there had been an introduction of the risk meetings, which were reviewing outstanding balances that had been held and where they stood towards spend by dates, which was a strengthening of controls. We could also see an improvement in the review of the terms and conditions that were being applied to Section 106 awards, to ensure we have some more robust arrangements there. But fundamentally, there did remain a number of gaps within the process and a number of areas that were still being addressed at the time of the audit. So one of the key areas is around the publishing of an infrastructure funding statement, which is a statutory requirement, which is still outstanding for the last 2 years, subject to the completion of finance reconciliations, which was another of the controls that we expected to see in place. Essentially reconciling the records within the council's finance systems to those that we understand we hold in terms of the balances. And without those reconciliations, my team and I are not able to give assurance over the accuracy of the records that are held. So those represent key controls which obviously reduce our assurance opinion. Whilst a number of processes had been improved, there were no documented procedures. So again, we needed to see those being taken forward and also to incorporate a greater level of management oversight and accountability within those processes to make sure there's some consistent practice in how we're handling these arrangements going forward. So overall, we have given a moderate assurance opinion for the control environment and the compliance and a medium organisational risk arising from this. And again, we have recommended, and it's in the audit plan for 26-27 for us to undertake a full follow-up review and to give some assurance around the actions taken to address the gaps that we identified. So linked to this, members will also note that there is an additional appendix to my report this evening, which related to an additional fact-finding review, which was commissioned to look at a particular item of funding, which had a spend by date of April 2025 and had been at risk, had breached that spend by date. So this was to look at any gaps or any lessons learned in terms of the processes and controls in this area to ensure that we could take some comfort that going forward, any of those actions have been taken forward and those gaps have since been addressed. So I did review this particular case and tried to identify any gaps in control. As this did run alongside the Section 106 monitoring audit, we were able to make sure that we had that full review of the processes and identifying weaknesses. And unsurprisingly, there were consistent findings across the two. So we didn't duplicate the recommendations, but I wanted to bring this to the committee so that you have oversight of the areas and the gaps that we've identified from this review and the additional action points that came out of this, in addition to reinforcing the recommendations from the audit that we'd already taken on Section 106 monitoring arrangements. So set out for you in the Appendix C to the report from page 99 of the pack is an overview of those process issues and any gaps and the 2 action points that we raised and have been accepted by management. There is also a management response on page 102 of the pack, page 4 of Appendix C, in terms of accepting those findings and giving some assurance on the action being taken. Also within the report is an update on the implementation of actions arising from the audit, so where we've identified a gap or a need for improvement in compliance. We make a recommendation and agree a management action. If those are not completed, we obviously bring those to the committee's attention. So Table 2 on page 90 of your pack provides you with an overview of those actions, which shows that 3 high priority actions have been completed since the last update to this committee, and 5 medium priority actions have been completed. We do, however, still have 22 actions which remain overdue, and updates on all of the high and medium recommendations which remain overdue are provided for you in the pack this evening, from page 23 of the pack in Appendix B. And the final column provides you with the latest update we've received from officers on each of those actions. Obviously, we can't give you any assurance on the completion of those until they are closed and we have had evidence, but those are the latest updates from officers on the progress they've made and any revised dates that they have been able to give for when they expect that work to complete. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, on the content of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to allow Councillor Scott to speak now that Rachel's finished, and then we'll open it to everyone else.
Thank you very much, Chair. My comments really pertain to Appendix C, which is the S106 report. I'd like to thank the members of the committee, officers and Grant Thornton for the reports we've had tonight, the comprehensive reports we've had. Thank you very much. The review into our Section 106 processes has highlighted several areas where the Council must improve to protect public money and ensure developer contributions are used properly. Firstly, the review found that we previously lacked clear ownership and day-to-day coordination of S106 data. This contributed to a case where a spend-by deadline was missed, creating a real financial risk to the Council. A new officer group is now in place, which I'm pleased to see, but we must ensure it remains properly resourced and accountable. Secondly, the review identified gaps in staffing and skills, particularly within our legal team. Delays in updating templates and providing legal advice meant uncertainty for applicants and risks to unallocated funds. The recommendation, I believe, is clear that we need reliable legal support, and this includes external help where necessary. Thirdly, senior level oversight had weakened between 2023 and 25. Cabinet Subcommittee and CMT stopped receiving regular reports of S106 balances. This meant risks were not escalated early enough, and what's happened now is reporting has been reinstated, but it must remain a permanent control, in my opinion. Where multiple applicants exist for grants, grants should be looked at holistically and not just individually, I believe, as well. Fourthly, transparency needs to improve. The Council hasn't published, as was mentioned earlier, an infrastructure funding statement since 22-23, and this must be addressed urgently. The rollout of the Exacom system will help residents and partners see how funds are being used. The review found that key procedures were not documented, leading to inconsistent practice. This was especially evident in the handling of a deed of variation, where action was taken too late. A formal approval process with clear timelines is now recommended. I have seen in a Freedom of Information document that I received that terms and conditions and phasing were not clearly communicated to a particular parish council. The review shows that while improvements are underway, we must continue strengthening our governance, our legal capacity, and our reporting and our transparency. These changes are essential to ensure we use developer contributions effectively and in the best interests of our community. In my opinion, there should also be a mention of a declaration of interest on grant applications, and I have previously spoken to Leah about that. And she was very helpful in directing me there. I would also welcome consultation with parish councils when forming the basis of any S106 agreement to ensure that the needs of the community are met and not spurious allocations. Currently, terms in S106 are being used like bringing a building back into use, and that can only apply to a specific named building. This would, to me, seems unbalanced and could lead to accusations of bias. Lastly, in any further investigation, please feel free to ask me to contribute. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Should we open it to any questions or comments? Councillor James?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I picked up most of what Councillor Scott said there. I mean, I think with regard to grants and with regard to Section 106 funding, at the end of the day, there has to be a champion emerge to get that done, to actually work hard and get everything into place and spend the money. I'll give a good example, and that's at Fleckney with the Scout facility at Fleckney, where 2 or 3 people, local people, got a grip of that and got the project delivered. And it's the same with a lot of grant funding and things like that. So we can have all the procedures and we can have advice and things like that. But it falls on 1 or 2 people in the village or in the town or wherever to actually do it, to become a champion and get the job done. I'll just make that comment, really.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Brendan.
Slightly different comment. As Rachel was speaking, I was just wondering, with the internal audits that you're doing, are you being welcomed? And the comments on page 102 appear that you are, and I hope that's expressed across all the teams that audit comes knocking on the door of. Because, as they say here, fact-finding reviews such as this are always an incredibly useful tool for understanding where improvements can be made to our processes and approach. Now, members have already identified through Councillor Scott whether things have fallen down, but nonetheless, we've had this statement now, we've had the report, we've had the audit report, and we've had the statement from the team that they're going to implement it. And it's thanks to the internal audit. And can I just make another quick comment about internal audit? I have full confidence in Rachel's team because I have seen the work that she's done as chair before in a certain investigation. And it was incredible work. I had to ferret out a lot of detail from the council. So until she trips up, I have confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if Clive could contribute something, particularly on the overdue actions, because you've mentioned to me about those.
Yeah, through chair. So members may recall back in February, a bit of a question was asked about the number of I can never get the phrase right, outstanding audit actions. And I said I will go away and own that and take it forward, and I have. So there was an appendix to the report that goes into a lot of detail about the outstanding audit actions and the appropriate update. Now, in all of them, well, most of them, we'll come back to the one that's missing, has alternative implementation dates. Okay. Now, Rachel and her team can't agree those dates because those dates have already been agreed as part of the audit. This is me going in as your 151 officer to respective directors and heads of service to say, right, these now need to be delivered, and they are the new dates that have been agreed. The one set of audit actions that you will see doesn't have a date on it is the partnerships audit, which has been outstanding for quite a while. That one I have taken away myself, and that I have spent an inordinate amount of time meeting a number of different people across the authority to address the concerns that Rachel has raised. I am sort of 95% there. It's a massive spreadsheet. I have shared it with Rachel so she could see that I have been working on it since the last meeting, and I have a few little queries outstanding, which I'm addressing over the next sort of few days, well, next week or so. Then I'll submit it to Rachel. So I just give you that assurance that I did take it on board. I did tackle it. You now have updated updates to those actions and revised dates. So I just wanted to let you know that because I gave you the commitment to do that last time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question as well. So the actions or the recommendations from the section 106 fact-finding report, do they then go into that same ongoing action list?
Yes, Chair. So I can confirm we'll be tracking those in the same way that we do with other actions. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments on the internal? Nope.
I think you need a vote.
Yep.
Because it's an approval. So is that right? So I'll propose it.
Yeah. We need a second there. Yes. Okay. So everyone's happy. Thank you. So, right, this is where it gets tricky. We're moving on to item number 8. I'll pass you.
Thank you, Chair. So turning to the parish complaints report, I know those of you who have seen me at committee are used to me spending some time presenting this report and going through them in detail. I don't intend to do that tonight because whilst I appreciate it's a lengthy report, I also hope it's very clear. I also realise it's tempting today to get into whether or not the councillor has breached the code of conduct. After all, this would have gone to a standards hearing. However, once the councillor resigned from the parish council, we lost our power to do that. The purpose of today's report is to ensure the committee is satisfied that the process followed and the work undertaken was robust, and to see what lessons we can learn to avoid such challenges arising again, particularly when you consider the human impact that this has had on all involved. Just to remind members, the full reports were included as exempt papers. The reason they were provided to you was so you could consider them, to ensure you had assurance over their robustness and an understanding of their complexity that helps inform debate on the costs involved and the process followed. If you do want to discuss these in more detail, we will need to move into private session due to the level of personal data within those appendices.
We need to know whether we want to discuss it in more detail.
Sorry, Chair, I think we should, because I think the detail we'll go into this will share personal information, so I think we should go into exec session.
Is everyone happy to agree then?
Yeah, you need a proposal.
Yes. Right. Where am I starting?
So I'm conscious there's a few other people in the room who are not members of the committee. And it is always down to a committee, if you do move into exempt session, who you retain in the room. Internal and external auditors have the right to see all documents held by the council, and as such, I propose it's no objection. There are some members in the public of the room who are very familiar with these details and actually have the exempt information. There is also another council, in fact, 2 other councillors present, both of whom I believe are also very familiar with the case. So I appreciate it. I'm not here to dictate to you, but as your advisor, I'd say my advice to you would be that all those present would be able to stay in the room, but we will obviously have to turn off the live stream if we do move into exempt session. And that would probably mean we carry on for the rest of the meeting in exempt session, because the next item of business is also exempt.
Yeah, Councillor Scott, did you want to say anything? Yes.
Include members of the public that are familiar and council councils, including myself.
Yep, everyone happy
So we just need to
to read this resolution?
yes.
Appendices C to G associated with the review of standards complaint handling report are exempt from publication by virtue of paragraphs 1 and 2 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, namely information relating to any individual and information which is likely to reveal the identity of an individual. Therefore, having regard to all the circumstances, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information, because the information relates to or could identify an individual. So we require a proposer, seconder, and then.
I think Councillor Remner proposed.
Okay, can we have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Bateman, thank you. And a vote. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, that's majority. So we just need to wait for Sarah to turn off the live stream. Sarah will just, for the benefit of members, Sarah is just